Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining another USA Technologies webinar. Thanks for joining us. I'm Adrian Austin. I work in the product and marketing teams over here at USAT. And today we're going to be talking about how to make adjustments in seed to deal with impacts that we're seeing from the COVID-19 situation. So we've assembled two members from our all-star CSM team, Terry and Jason. I'm going to go through and introduce them in just a minute. But first, I want to provide some basic guidance for the webinar today. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's the GoToMeeting questions box. Here you can list any questions that you have for Terry and Jason today. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll take some time to answer as many of them as we can. Don't worry if we don't get to your question, though, in the allotted time. We're going to be replying to everyone via email, so please send in any questions that you have, and we'll be sure to address them. Additionally, we're going to be recording this webinar for future viewings and sending the recording out to everyone that registered for today. So if you're taking notes at home, feel free to go ahead, but just also know you'll have the recording to fly back on and reference. All right, starting with introductions. So kicking it off with Terry. Terry is a NAMA certified executive as a 30-year veteran in the vending industry. He's also an experienced seed cloud expert. So Terry has mastered just about every level of the vending business, from route driver to senior manager. Before joining Cantaloupe Systems, Terry managed a 250-person operation at Tampa Bay Vending. Terry's also been a route supervisor, area manager, public relations and customer retention manager, and a district manager overseeing vending operations in 3 major metropolitan areas in Florida. Terry's also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps and holds an AS degree in business from Coastal Carolina College. Terry, thanks a bunch for being on the call today.
Thank you.
All right, headed over to Jason. So with 25 years of vending industry experience and more than 7 years at Cantaloupe Systems and USAT, Jason began his career at North County Vending, which is the largest independent vending operator west of the Rockies. Jason started as a route driver and ended up working in just about every aspect of NVC's 13-branch business, including roles as machine refurbishment tech, field tech, route supervisor, branch manager, service manager, and senior operations manager. Jason spearheaded NCV's use of advanced technology and was instrumental in the NCV becoming the first large operator to deploy Seed Cloud, including the first large-scale use of dynamic scheduling and the first multi-branch deployment of Seed. Jason, thanks a bunch for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, just quick introduction for myself. So I'm Adrian Austin, like I said before. I joined the convenience services industry just 2.5 years ago with a background as a product manager in the semiconductor industry. But here at USAT, amongst many other marketing-related activities, my job is to work to get people who are a lot more informed than myself in the unattended retail industry to try to come and speak at our USAT webinars. So for the webinar today, we aim to put this presentation together as quickly as possible to try to help our customers through this difficult time. So hopefully our goal is that everyone attending today hopefully has something to take away. If you still have any questions unanswered at the end of today, please don't hesitate to reach out via email or a phone to your sales representative. Okay, that's enough for me. I'm going to hand it over to Terry to kick things off.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I hope everybody's doing as well as they possibly can right now. And, I wish these were better circumstances, but, we have to make do with what we can. So basically, the CSM team, we've received a lot of calls this week, as you can imagine. We've probably been busier than a Chick-fil-A at lunch. But, so we've taken those questions and we've tried to put together a webinar that, answers those the best we can, trying to help you out. The things that we're expecting that you're going to have to deal with are, unfortunately, reducing PARs in a hurry on a lot of machines at one time. So I'll show you that. While Jason is going to focus on the different things you can do with scheduling. You're probably going to have employees that are missing work, so you're going to be short-handed maybe. So guys are going to have to cover multiple routes. So he's going to show you flex scheduling. You're going to have locations, unfortunately, close, and he's going to show you some exception periods so that those things, at least they don't appear on your schedule and things like that. Okay. right, so I'll get started. The first thing I want to say is, you know, any of these changes that you make, I think it's a good idea to be organized. Like for example, I have a folder, I just call it pandemic docs, but basically any changes you make, you know, hopefully soon this will all be over and we can return pretty close to normal, and we'll want to be able to go back and change those things back to the way they were before. Okay, so getting started, I'll say most of you are probably familiar with what we call the planogram import export. Okay, I'm not going to click on this because if I export this through this, what will happen is every coil and every vending machine in your operation will appear. So this was the first thing we thought about. So, you know, we feel like, yeah, that's usable when you have a lot of time. But the people we're talking to are making really quick decisions and having to, you know, make adjustments really fast. So what we did was we took the liberty to create a spotlight report, and we had our dev team go ahead and preload that report into everybody's database, into your catalog. So you'll find this report here. Make a note, change PAR report, line of business 2020. Okay. Really nice. You just, you know, simply click on this report, and you have two filters. The first one is you can enter a customer name. So this way we can do this, and we can organize this by customer without necessarily you know, pulling everything. If you're not sure, line of business is going to equal vending in this case. You can also do this for markets. Okay, and then I'm going to export this to Excel. Okay, so as you see, this has quite a bit of information, but what's important to us is over here. We're going to have our coil IDs, and this is where the PARs are. So as I stated, what I'd really want to do at this point is I want to save a copy of this file so that I can change it back. Okay, so what I will do, and whatever method you use, obviously that's up to you. I'll find that folder I created about the pandemic, and I will call this Air Trust. And just for ease, I'll say old PAR level. And I'll save it. And then I could just simply come back and make those adjustments. So in this case, maybe I just want to cut everything in half. I can just go down and change my PAR levels all the way down. Maybe I'll go 10 here or something. Okay, now I just completed a machine. Obviously I can do every machine at this location, but I'll just stop there for the, you know, the purpose of doing this example. I'll save it again. I'll find that same folder right here, but this time I'll call it Air Trust new PAR level. Pretty basic, right? Pretty simple. Now all I have to do is go back to this planograms under setup, find my import export coils, browse my own files, and find my new PAR levels, open it, and import it. As you see, these are the PAR level changes. They go all the way down. Very simple. I just click on import, and that is done. Pretty simple. Now you guys might have some questions on this. We're not going to take questions in the middle, but like Adrian said, we will answer questions near the end. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jason and give him an opportunity to, I think I can turn it over and let him show you the other part. Adrian, you may have to give this to, there you go.
Everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit, like Terry said, about either reducing some of the scheduling turning off certain locations for scheduling via exception periods first. So there's a couple different ways to grab it. Really what you're looking for is your particular location that you want to look for to change that scheduling on based on an exception period. So you can either search it from the top here and find that particular location. And what you're going to find is you can also get there from a machine list. So from the machine list, I can filter down to my routes over here and look for a particular location that I want to set an exception period for. Click into it, I'll see my machines underneath. And what we have is the exception period button. You can see that I'm on the location detail page here. And if I hit exception period, this will allow me to make some changes to how I schedule, how scheduling looks at the particular locations, whether or not they actually show up on schedule, or if I'm reducing the volume. If they're cutting back on employees, you can cut down on when it draws a particular location into schedule based on what I'm forecasting the normal volume sales to be. So in this case, I can set a time frame for when I want this exception period to start and when I want it to end. So if we say I wanted to start it today, and I'm going to go through, say, the 30th of April, there's a couple of options that I can then do. I can say this location is closed, disable the scheduling. And so a couple of things occurs when I do this. One is this is going to stop this particular location from popping up in my scheduling screen. So I no longer have to look through and figure out which locations are currently operating and remove them, remove the ones that are not from my schedule manually. It'll automatically remove it from my schedule, and come the 30th of next month, it'll come back up on the schedule automatically and start pulling it back into schedule again. Another thing I can do is where people are cutting back on the number of employees they have at their particular operation. So, you know, if I'm expecting, you know, they're cutting half of the employees, I can cut back that forecasting on the scheduling side by 50% normal volume, as well as if I have a particular machine that is set to a forecasted pre-pick group, then I can cut back how much I'm actually forecasting for that particular machine. So there still might be a lot of volume there, but I want to cut back on how much I'm forecasting. So to click into this, you can also go in and look at, another thing to look at is maybe they cut back, and I was forecasting, these used to be really high volume, but also I want to look at, I don't need to actually forecast additional product for this anymore. I want to put it on a normal pre-pick group. And your pre-pick group can be changed right inside the machine itself. And this is another place where if I was on a forecasted pre-pick group, maybe I want to bring it back down to a normal volume, you know, or even low volume type pre-pick group, so I can change how I pre-pick, no longer forecasting additional product for that machine. Okay, coming back to the location exception period, let's say I want to close this location and I add that in, but I have a few machines or a few parts of that building that maybe there's still employees in, so I want to still be able to service those, but not all the rest of them that are in that building. I can then actually go into an individual asset. I'm going to open this up in a new tab here. And on my schedule settings, I can tell this particular machine to ignore that exception period that I just created. So if you have certain parts of the building that are still operating and other parts are not, I can put an exception period on the location, then have certain machines or certain parts of that particular building ignore that location exception period that I just did. Now this machine would still pull back up in for scheduling, where the other machine where I told it not to ignore that exception period, this machine will no longer show up on my scheduling page. So that's a real simple, easy way for those places that are closing down, reducing their volume, to go into also along with what Terry talked about, which is reducing my par levels. One of the other things that we have available is the ability to do what we call flex routing. So in looking at my scheduling, when I'm on easier scheduling, and I'm going to create a schedule for tomorrow, there's a couple of things that I can do, and I'm going to go ahead and click create later, is I can, if I'm going to run, say I normally have 3 or 4 routes, but I know I'm not going to have to use that volume anymore. I don't need 4 routes to operate. I can create what's called a merge schedule. And so I'm going to merge everything to Route 1. Route 1 is going to run the stuff, and I'm going to combine 2 and 3 in with Route 1. And when I hit create merge schedule, what it's going to do is going to pull in all my assets under a Route 1 schedule and allow me then to edit this schedule. So you can see I currently have all the machines showing up for routes 1, 2, and 3 on this particular schedule. So now I can manipulate my schedule to which locations I currently want, and it tells me what route it's from. So this is in my subroute, this is Route 2, subroute 22. So now I can actually go through and actually set the machines for these different routes that I want on the schedule. Okay, so this allows you to actually create a merge schedule. It only is going to move the machines from Route 2 and 3 onto Route 1 for this one particular schedule, but they're going to stay separate. So I'm not manually moving them permanently to this route. It's only for this one particular day that I want Route 1 to service these machines from this other route. So that's what we call a merge schedule. I'm going to come back into easier here, and I'm going to run this a little bit different way. And I'm going to delete this schedule out and show you a little bit different way to run the schedule. So I can go in and say I want to create a schedule for Route 1. I'm going to create a schedule for Route 2. And I can see, well, maybe a bunch of the locations for Route 1 were closed. So I want to move some of these locations from Route 2 over to Route 1. Still run both routes, but lighten this guy's load, kind of balance between my 2 routes. Some of the ways you can do it is I can either move subroutes between the different routes. So if I have one particular subroute built and I want to move it from Route 2 to Route 1, I can use that, the tool for moving subroutes between checked schedules. Okay. The other way is service assets on another route. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open what this schedule looks like for this particular route. And you can edit these schedules ahead of time and then do this move also. And you can also do this move after you've already generated your pre-picks. So I can see which ones have come up on Route 2, and I see I have 35 assets here that are on this schedule. So I also now know the names of these locations, and I can pick and choose which locations I want to move from one schedule to another. So I'm going to use the service assets on another route. In this case, I'm going to move them from Route 2, which has the 35 on it, to Route 1. And if I go into my location, I can actually go then look at my schedule and say, hey, I want to do Globe Oil on this route. And I can move that from the one route to the other. So now you can see that 4 assets move from Route 2 to Route 1. So I can easily go through and move that through. You can do it by asset that way. You can do it by location. You can move multiple different ways. Subroute, a whole route over. Typically, if you're moving the whole route, I just create a merge schedule instead. But if you want to actually look at the schedule, manipulate it, and then move the entire route, you can also do it through service assets on another route. So this allows you to look at your schedules, then move stuff from one route to another, maybe not have to operate as many routes out on the field if it's not necessary to do so. So some of the really cool scheduling tools that we have are found down at the bottom, called special scheduling tools. And we talk through, again, creating a merge schedule where I'm creating a schedule for all of them and then picking and choosing which ones I want to manually put on that particular route for that day. And the other one's moving full subroutes between. So you can go in and you can choose the actual subroutes. Route 1, and here's my normal route. I can say, you know what, Route 2 is going to run this subroute today. So you can move them based on the actual subroutes as well. So there's multiple ways that you can move data using the flex scheduling tool that'll allow you to consolidate routes down so you're not running so many trucks out in the field. And in these tough times, as we know, a lot of locations are closing, and using this flex scheduling is going to be really important to be able to figure out how many routes you actually are going to need to run that next day. That way you know how many employees you want to bring in, which guys are going to run the routes, and then bounce those across the different routes as needed on the flex scheduling. So some really simple tools that I think we laid out here today for you. The exception periods for those places that are closed or reducing the number of employees that they have at them. Adjusting pre-pick groups. You can go in and adjust pre-pick groups. You can also generate new pre-pick plans if you want to, and then move your routes to those pre-pick plans. So let's not forget about that as well. If I go into pre-pick plans, if I want to change how I'm pre-picking product, maybe I can actually create a whole new plan, then utilize new pre-pick groups and still be able to reduce how much I'm picking. You know, maybe put a bigger pick percent on them, so you're not as picking as many units, or less onesie twosies, and be able to get away with a little bit less labor in today's tough times. And then we talked about flex scheduling, how to be able to move stuff across one route to another, whole sub routes, creating merge schedules. These types of tools are really important in these times to be able to utilize, to be able to consolidate your business down a little bit as some of these companies are closing down, reducing their staff. And I think it's really helpful. These are questions that we've had from a lot of customers this last week or so on how to do it. So we felt it was really good for us to bring these tools up into a webinar so everybody can kind of see these tools, keep it simple, but at the same time, give you the tools that are available to you through the Seed Web application that'll allow you to manipulate your data and how you're scheduling your current routes today. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to our organizer.
All right. Thanks a bunch, Jason, for going over a lot of great stuff. Okay, next part of the webinar is going to be Q&A. So I'm pulling up the questions we're looking at right now. So Terry, Jason, first one that's coming in, which is, if a driver misses an asset and it gets moved to the next day, does it go back to the original route?
So yes, if you're using flex scheduling and you move it from one route to another on the flex scheduling for that day, and that driver happens to not make it to that location, when you move it to next day's schedule, it's going to go back to its original route. Therefore, you can then again use flex scheduling to move it back to another route that you might want to do it. And the reason we do that is because you might not want to put it back on the same route that it originally was on. So let's put it back to the original route, which then allows you to move it to another route at that day, on that day. Great question.
All right, next question. Will a route driver need to use multiple handhelds when you merge schedules?
No, when you actually move the schedule from one route to another, that allows that driver that you move that machine to for that one day to actually log in the one time it's on his normal schedule, just like all his original machines are. That way you don't have to move back and forth from one schedule to another. It's all sitting on one schedule. One of the really great pieces about flex scheduling that allow you to move those across, service them on that one day, and then they will move back to their original route the next day.
All right, next question. Is there a way to do a mass import-export of the exception periods using an Excel document?
No, so this is the one time that I've actually seen this, and I wish, you know, some things you just can't forecast that would be needed, and this is the first time I've actually ever seen this come up, and definitely in my lifetime. So that's not a tool that we actually built in, but it's obviously something clearly we want to look at. Hopefully we never have this again in our lifetime, but the fact is it's here, and it wasn't a tool that we thought we were going to need. So it wasn't a tool that we did build.
Yeah,
So
I'd like to
apologize
add.
for that.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Like Jason said, this wasn't anything we've foreseen. So we're definitely going to put that request in. I certainly don't see any obstacles of getting it done. To give you an idea, you know, if you look at how we moved the machine to the next scheduled day, you know, we were in the same boat then. We didn't expect to ever have to do that, and then we had a big unexpected snowstorm one time, and decided that this was a good move. So, like that, unfortunately, we don't have it yet, but we will.
All right, same with exception periods. Is there a report to list all exception periods?
That's a great question. Let me see. I'll have to look in Spotlight reports and see if I can pull up exception periods for it. If you want to jump to the next question, I'll kind of filter through that to answer that question.
All right. Which is better, a reduction of pars or a reduction of percentage of forecast?
Well, they're both very different. So, you know, a reduction of par is going to mean I'm not going to fill this machine under any circumstances past this amount. A reduction of forecasting is simply reducing that extra amount we were going to send. So if you have an account that's going to slow down, I would definitely reduce par. If you have a customer that is, you know, still going to be doing pretty well, but they're going to do less than what they had been doing in the past, then you want to reduce your forecasting. But that would still be probably an everyday type customer, or at least no more than every other day.
Got it. Okay. Another question, which might be a clarification of what we talked about earlier. Can we move an asset to another route after a pre-pick has been created?
Yeah, the trick is they both have to be in the same condition. So if I'm going to move one machine to a route that already has a pre-kit, then I need to make sure that when I do it, this machine also has a pre-kit. So one of the ways to do that, you know, we recommend is maybe having something that we call a supervisor route or something like that, where you can at least have that machine get to the same condition by creating the pre-kit and then move it over.
All right, next question.
Or if you haven't picked those pre-kits yet, you could do that. You know, the simple way is to just move it and then just rerun pre-picks for the whole route.
All right. Next question. Would you be able to simply extend an extension period if these stores and businesses decide to not open back up during their current estimated time?
Actually, I haven't done that in a while, but I do think you would still need to create a new one. I'll take, like Jason, I'm also looking. These are great questions.
We got a lot more too.
Yeah, I'd have to actually add a new one. It doesn't allow me to edit an existing one.
All right. If the handheld displays a lower par than the actual level, will it prompt the driver to pull and record the excess as removed?
Well, actually, that doesn't prompt the driver to do anything. You do, however, have the ability to write notes if you recognize this yourself by simply going to the machine, clicking on notes. There's a little line that says add note. Keep in mind when you add notes, there's two options. One is to have on the pre-kit and one is to have on the scheduler. If you want a driver to see a note, you make sure it's on the pre-kit. And when the driver opens the machine, it will actually make him go read the note before he can get into the machine. There's also day options, like and typically a note like that would probably be would end at the next restock. So when the driver goes and services it and completes the action, the note would go away.
All right, that actually kind of came up to one of the questions I had during the presentation. So what if a driver or what if an operator wants drivers to remove products from the machine? Is there something that they can add in to the scheduling notes or on mobile to instruct that?
Yeah, there is, and it can be as detailed as you'd like, but say, for example, if I'm reducing par to 5 of every, of all the selections, it would be easy to put a note that simply states, anything above par are above 5, return and make note. Of course, you'd want to return it in Seed Mobile so that you're keeping track of that inventory. You know, if it's something that's going to have to spoil, of course, you'd put it in there, but there's also a return box in Seed Mobile.
All right. Next question. If you adjust par levels at an account, is there an undo option for when pars go back to normal?
Actually, no, but that's why you want to save the original copy. So when you first pull those planogram changes, and that's why I'd use the import. If you're doing them manually, there's no way to do this. But if you export that, say by customers, as I showed, and then save the old version, when everything goes back to normal, whatever normal may be, then you would just simply import that original file back in, and that'll change it.
Right. All right, next question. If a pick is picked, is it recommended to hold the pick or put it back in stock if an account closes for 2 weeks? Warehouse only receives trucks weekly.
Could you repeat that, Adrian?
Yeah, so I think the question is saying if they've already pre-picked into totes, is it, and then an account closes for 2 weeks after it's been picked, is it recommended to hold the pick in the totes or to distribute back to stock, with the added note that the warehouse only receives trucks weekly?
Yeah, I would return that if I knew it was going to be 2 weeks. You know, for one, you know, it may not be 2 weeks. Especially that's what we're looking at right now. People are saying they're closing for 2 weeks, but I think when we get to that 2 week mark, we're going to see some extensions. So it just makes more sense just to put it back and get that stock freshly rotated.
Okay. If there is a large account with multiple machines, can you put a single machine on an exception period without putting it on the whole account?
Something like that. So exception periods are assigned by location. But if you look at an individual machine schedule settings, there's a checkbox that says ignore exception periods. So it kind of works in reverse of what that question asked. I can't assign it to a single machine, but what I can do is I can make a single machine an exception, not use it. Again, that's in the schedule settings box at the machine level. Just go in, you'll see ignore exception periods.
All right.
Has Jason?
Next question.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, Jason, did you find the thing that you're looking for yet?
No, I have not.
Yeah, I don't think you will. It's part of the exception periods expansion that we're going to have to look at after this event.
All right, next question. If there's a large, so we just covered that one. Can you stop the exception period earlier than you originally set the end date?
Yeah, you can go in and end it. You can go in and just simply delete it. Now, the thing about exception periods is it's not an immediate change, and that's one thing I don't think we were even clear about. An exception period is an operation, especially when it's when it's increasing. If it's just a matter of opening or closing an account, that'll take effect right away. But if we're increasing or decreasing a forecasted pre-kit amount, that's not going to actually apply until the server does a certain job at midnight. I believe it is midnight Pacific time. So if I made an immediate change and then I went and ran my pre-kits, I wouldn't see that. It wouldn't be reflected in that pre-kit, but it would the next day.
All right. Next question. Is there a report that we can pull to view each route by day by all delivered items? So they need them to list out by day and by route. The efficiency report only allows to pull one at a time, or it combines them if you pull more. They tried by branch and it combines the routes into one. And if they pull MTD, we want each route by day, all delivered items, vending, delivery, and markets.
Yeah, it would be a spotlight report. What I would recommend for, and I don't know that if we've covered this, but the CSM team is all available. We're not traveling for a few weeks, obviously. I would recommend reaching out for, complex questions like this, or, assistance. But yeah, we could build pretty much anything in the spotlight report section. So reach out to your CSM, or even application support. For people that aren't familiar, we do have an application support line that can be reached through our main office.
Awesome. And that's the last question. Well, I think that's a pretty good amount and a good time to stop right there. Terry or Jason, anything else that you wanted to cover that came to mind before we start to wrap things up?
I just want to reiterate the fact that we're expecting a lot of calls. We've gotten a lot this week already related to these things, and I understand just like that last question, there's certain reports that that you guys want to run so that you can make these decisions, make good decisions. So by all means, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, we're pretty busy, so if we don't answer, we'll call you back as soon as we can and get everybody taken care of.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great time to cut it off. Terry, Jason, thanks again for joining. Everybody on the call, huge thank you for you. Hopefully this is helpful. You'll be seeing the recording come to your inboxes later today. And just to reiterate what Terry said, if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your CSM. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day and have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.